Get higher, baby. Get higher, baby. Get higher, girl. Hey.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Pageless Library. I am Bo Knight, and with me, as always, is Ryan Knight, and we are a little podcast that reviews audiobooks. And today, we are looking at The Jester by James Patterson and Andrew Gross, narrated by Neil Dickinson.
Dickens.
This is actually his name.
I know. Neil Dixon. Yeah, so, like Bo said, this is James Patterson and Andrew Gross. Does James Patterson write books by himself?
Yeah, he does. He
Does he?
has tons of books, dude.
No. But aren't they all like with someone else for the most part?
No,
No?
they're almost all by himself.
Yes.
He has he has so many murder mysteries.
I don't know, man. Well, I know. I've listened to a ton of James Patterson's books, but like, I'm just saying,
right. Maybe he does write with other people only.
I was gonna say, if you click on his bio, it's like James Patterson and so and so, James Patterson and so and so. Like he co-authors with a ton of people. I mean, which is fine. Right. That's fine. I don't have a problem with it. I just have noticed it. I know these Alex Cross books that he does are him by himself. But anyways, getting off topic.
I'm almost wondering, because now I'm wondering if like this other person wasn't necessarily writing, if they were doing like research for him.
Andrew Gross? Why? Oh yeah, because this is his only book, huh?
Yeah, well, because I think he even mentions in the beginning that he's like Andrew Gross for keeping the historical accuracy.
Oh yeah, it says author Andrew Gross, but there's no. I mean, The Jester is it. That's all it's on his little bio thing here on Audible.
So I'm almost wondering if James Patterson is just giving like credit to people who helped him.
Well, I mean, if he is, then good on him.
Yeah, it is. It is good on him.
So as I just said, we got this off Audible. So if you listen to this one anywhere else, your mileage may vary. It might not be narrated by Neil Dixon.
I mean, the one we had on tape was.
Yeah. This stays true to that we, sorry, that we had from long time ago back on tape.
Yeah. First way I listened to it.
Right. Yeah, this was one of our original audio books, I think, that kind of got us into listening even.
I mean, which is kind of scary because I feel like I was pretty young.
Yeah, this book came out in 2003. So, yeah, long time ago. So, let's see. Should we tell everybody where they can get a hold of us before we get too deep into this?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. I'll just drop our email instead of naming everything off again. But if anybody's looking to contact us for any reason, likes, gripes, complaints, anything you want. You just want to say what's up. If you want to just say "Sadu," you could you could email us at kotpl.pod@gmail.com. That would be the easiest way to get in direct contact with us. We have a couple other ways you could get a hold of us, but for now, we'll just drop that one. And we're still waiting on our first email. So anybody who wants to take that medal, go for it.
So yeah, and then we already talked about when it was published. So I mean, we kind of talked about it a little bit, but James Patterson. I mean, I feel like if you are remotely interested in audiobooks, he has so many, tons and tons of books that he's written.
Yeah, tons.
Mostly and like murder mystery stuff.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. A lot of murder mystery. He's known for mysteries and thrillers, I think, and suspense novels, pretty much. So.
Yeah, and the narrator, Mr. Dickinson, I think he does a great job, in my opinion.
Yeah, actually, I think that this Dickens guy does a pretty good job on this book. He He does a great job because there's a lot of characters in this book, and he does a pretty good job even of just doing like subtle voice changes and stuff like that, just to keep each character, slightly different from each other. Even though it's like a ton of men talking, you still know who is talking based on their voice.
Yeah, he does a great job.
Yeah, I thought he did a really good job. I wouldn't say he makes or breaks this story. He definitely adds to it. I would say that he adds to the story for sure.
So the Jester is like a medieval, like, adventure story.
Yeah,
you see that's right.
Yeah, it also has kind of some like mystery and twists and stuff that happen too quite a bit. So
it's also kind of a love story.
Yeah, it has a little bit of that. It kind of takes a very backseat approach, but it does have a love story in there of sorts. This is a decent length audiobook. This is 13 hours.
It's pretty long.
Yeah, it's a pretty long one. So this is definitely one you kind of gotta buckle up for. And for the price, well, now I'm not seeing the price. I thought I saw it. I want to say it's showing like $20.
$17.
Yeah, okay. So about $20.
$16.99.
So you do get a lot of listening time though for your money. That's for sure.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, if you're quarantined, this might be a good choice.
Very good point. Good point. Yeah, if you are, and anybody in way in the future, we are recording this in March of 2020, and yeah, most people are, self-isolating right now. So,
yeah, true.
Would you say this book is easy to follow if you were like daydreaming or anything like that?
No.
Okay, I wouldn't either. You do kind of have to pay attention to the details in this one, I think.
You do.
Especially the names, because they throw out a lot of names, and a lot of them sound kind of similar, or like they're kind of generic, like Stephen and Baldwin, like those kind of things start to sound very similar when they're saying them very, like over and over and over. So you do have, but those are two important characters, so you do have to pay attention to each person's name and like who they are and what their title and stuff is.
And it kind of jumps around too to like different things that are happening all at the same time.
Yeah.
So if you weren't like really listening, you're like you won't really understand what's happening sometimes.
Right.
And I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, this is a really complicated book, and I do think it's a strength, not a weakness.
Sure.
But I you do have to pay attention.
Yeah, this is definitely not one that you can kind of just casually listen to and still come away with it with the full experience. I don't think. I think you do have to kind of devote the time to listen to this one. But like you said, I don't think that's a bad thing.
Me neither. I don't think so at all.
So why don't we just jump right into our recommendations for this one?
So yeah, recommendations. I mean, I've listened to this book since I was a kid, and it's still good.
Yeah, same here. This is the first time I've listened to this book in years.
Same.
I mean, I probably haven't listened to this book in 15 years or more. It's probably been more than that, actually. And
the last time I listened to it, it was on tape.
Exactly. Yeah, same here. Because we just downloaded it for the podcast, and so yeah, the last time I would have listened to it would have been on tape. So yeah, probably about 15 years ago. Still holds up. Still was a very good, solid listen, and I would definitely recommend this book.
I do have to give the caveat though, like if you are like squeamish at all, this book is brutal.
Yeah,
it's super brutal.
So, right, it very much so is kind of a timepiece. So you're probably right.
Right,
Andrew Gross was probably, trying to keep a lot of historical accuracy to that. And for anybody who doesn't know, apparently back in the year like 1095, it was a brutal time to be alive. Like,
Oh, dude, this. Yeah, like if you're squeamish at like I don't know, like if you watch like a like a gory movie and you're like, ooh, this is this is a little bit much for me, like you might struggle with a lot of parts in this book. I'm gonna be honest with you, this is a
right,
really like gritty and real take on medieval times.
right, and they don't shy away from that at all.
No,
And I
they
realized that this
don't.
book came out. This book came out like 17 years ago. This book probably couldn't even be released today because people would be too offended.
Which is a damn shame because this book. All right, I gotta get this off my chest. This book slaps, dude. It's so good.
It is
It's
good.
so good.
Yeah.
And like one of the things I just said, like it's a really gritty take on medieval times, but I still struggle to find things that are this honest and true about the times as this book is.
Sure.
And I don't know, like this book always leaves me like craving, wanting more of just like hearing about things that are happening in that time.
Right. Yeah,
I don't know
I
about you,
agree.
but that's how I feel.
No, I agree. I mean, this book is amazing, and I'll get into a little bit more after we pass our spoiler wall. But there are some stuff. This will surprise you, but there's some stuff in this that kind of actually pisses me off. But
No, I
not
have
for the.
things too that are wrong.
So yeah, but it has nothing to do with the book or the story. That's the interesting part.
Huh.
But I definitely highly recommend it for me, for sure.
So yeah, you want to go past the spoiler wall now?
Yeah, so now that we gave our both, big thumbs up on this one, we highly recommend it to anyone. So we're going to now go past our spoiler wall. We're going to talk about the whole story. So we recommend, if you wanted to listen to this one, go ahead and hit pause now, go listen to the book, and then come right back and listen to our thoughts on it.
And we really mean go listen to it. Like if you are remotely interested in this, do not spoil it for yourself, because it will not have the same impact if you know what's going to happen.
Yeah, great,
so
good point.
Really do yourself a favor and do not stop listening right now. Pause it and come back if you were even remotely interested in this.
Yeah, I agree, because there's going to be a lot of twists that we're going to ruin right now. So
right.
And it will, and like Bo said, it will not be nearly as impactful if you know it's coming. So
right. So yeah, so let's move on past that.
Okay. So the Jester it actually opens up. I kind of like the opening sequence of this in a way.
Oh, dude, it's so brutal.
Well, so I like the opening sequence of I'm talking about the very, very, very beginning when it's like modern times.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, so right in the beginning of this book, it opens up in basically modern time, and it's like all these scientists and stuff talking about a grand discovery, and we don't know what it is. We don't find out what it is, but basically they are like, this is one of the most prized relics ever to, be on the face of the earth, and apparently it was last in possession by a jester. And it's like, boom, and then we hit this. In a movie, it'd be like this huge like warp portal, and we go back into the past, back to like 1095, I think is when this takes place.
Yeah, like right when the Crusades are going like real big.
Yeah, right when the Crusades are in full swing. And that was the part that I was going to say is what pisses me off, is the fact that the Crusades are even a thing.
Oh, that's what you're mad about?
Yes. Like I said, I'm not mad about the story. I'm not mad about the book. I'm mad about the fact that, all religious people try to just gloss over the fact that, oh yeah, the Crusades happened. Yeah, we murdered millions of people, in the name of our God. It was good though. It was good.
Okay, hang on. So let's start talking a little bit more about the setting and stuff like that before we start talking about the Crusades.
Yeah, okay.
No, because I have a lot to say about that too, and like I was gonna start talking about it, and we're just gonna like miss things.
You're right.
So this story is about this man, a red-haired man. His name's Hugh DeLuc, and he owns a tavern. Oh man, what is the town that he's Trey? No,
he's from. Oh man, he is from. Why can't I think of it?
Because
it'll come to me. He's from a little tiny town. Yeah, he's from a little tiny town in France.
Yeah.
There's Trey and Beret are the two big cities,
Right.
right? Yeah. Anyways, it's from a small like little place in France. I'll think of it, or I'll look it up. So go ahead.
So most of the story is told from like his eyes, but not all of it. It does jump around to other people when other things are happening. But so,
Yeah,
you know,
but, like-
it opens up, and he's like doing a normal day, and then this like troop of men come through town, and they're like trying to gather people for the Crusades. And a couple people leave from his town and go on the Crusades. And then like shortly after that, like a bunch of knights show up from their lord, and they're mad that the guys basically deserted their place, like serving the king, and they freaking drown one of the kids. Oh, it's so
It's
brutal.
It's the miller's son.
Well, he ties him to the freaking the mill wheel on the little river, and he just holds him underwater.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's so brutal, dude.
It's extremely brutal. It's Vey du Père, by the way.
Vey du Père, that's what it's called.
Yeah. So yeah, very definitely a French name. Yeah, so these knights roll in, and see this part is, I mean, it adds to what kind of makes me mad, because I'm sure this stuff happened all the time. So you got these people coming through saying, "Hey, you need to come with us and fight for God. We're going to the Holy Land, and we're gonna free the Holy Land, and you should come fight with us." So some of them are like, "Yeah, we'll go fight," and so they leave, and then the king is like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! Those were all my people. They were giving me their taxes. Where did they go?"
Yeah.
And so he punishes them. It's pretty fucked up. Like,
But the sad thing is, this isn't even like the 8th worst thing that happens.
oh no. Yeah, so he drowns the miller's son and pisses a bunch of people off. But what are they gonna do? These are like knights that are they're not from the king, they're from their lord, the duke. It's not Baldwin, right? Yeah, it's Baldwin. That's right. Yeah, Baldwin is the duke of their duchy, is where they're like county, basically, where they live.
Yeah. So they're like his serfs, I guess.
I think so. Probably butchering the terminology, but yeah, I think that sounds right.
The one history teacher's like, ugh, God damn it!
Just he's got his hand around his whiskey glass and he's about to shatter it because he's getting so mad.
He throws it into his fireplace next to all his books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's sitting listening to this podcast like our cover picture is. Yeah. He has his helmet on and everything because he's so into the era. He has his helmet on with his headphones over it to listen to it.
I feel like that would cause a lot of echo or something. So Hugh decides after this that he wants to go on the Crusades. So that, like, why does he decide to go?
He goes with the second group. So the first guy who comes through is Peter the Hermit, right?
Right.
Peter the Hermit takes like a good group of guys, or not a good group, but he has like this big following, and he calls himself Peter the Hermit, but he says he's going to go and join the Crusades to help, free the Holy Land. And the second guy who comes through, I cannot think of his name, but that's when Hugh decides he's going to leave, because he said, look, I'll leave and I'll earn my freedom is what I'm going to earn. And he said that way we don't have to worry about like Baldwin's knights showing up and messing with us anymore. So he tells his wife, Sophie, I'm going to go. It won't be very long, and then I'll be home. So he joins this ragtag troop of guys, which it sounds like that's pretty much every single time they see guys rounding up dudes for the crusade, it's always just like farmers with pitchforks, essentially.
Yeah, it is. And he ends up being gone for like a long time.
So I think it's almost 2 years or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And the Crusades are, oh man, like when they're sieging Antioch, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
Is so brutal.
Yeah.
Like it's horrible.
So
in a good way.
Right. So Hugh gets a lot of firsthand experience about what the Crusades are about. One of the first things that happens is they find that Peter the Hermit's guys, all dead. The whole group that was with Peter the Hermit was slaughtered when they got there. So Hugh's company, or a group of guys that he is with, they do a lot better. They start taking cities, they whatever. I'm saying better too. I'm gonna say with quotations around it because the whole thing just pisses me off. So
They're basically just like looting this place. And
yeah, and
raping people on the way.
oh yeah, for sure. And it's like, so when Bo says it's like horrible, I mean you're getting full on descriptions of what's happening in Hugh's eyes.
There are people that get boiling oil poured on them. There are
Right.
people that get disemboweled. There are women that are raped by multiple men at the same time.
There's guys like cut in half with a single sword swing.
Yeah.
So you're hearing about all this stuff. It's terrible, right? I mean, anybody who listens to this would be like, "Oh my gosh, that's awful." Okay, now you have to remember that number one, these things really happened. This is documented history that these things happened. And number two, that this was all done in the name of God. And I say in the name of God, but that's just in the name of one God, because realistically, they were fighting against people who essentially believe the same thing as them, just in a different way.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get all talk about like religion and stuff, but that's just, I think everybody should let that sink in a little bit. That is just disgusting. Like,
yeah.
Just this huge smudge on the freaking timeline of history for humans. One of many.
Yeah, one of many, for sure.
Anyways, so Hugh is along for this crusade, and like Bo said, they're going along and they're taking some cities, and then they siege Antioch, which is like this huge main capital city that they're trying to siege. And they end up taking it because they get some people on the inside, right? And
we don't really get to know a lot about that though.
No, just Hugh just witnesses this because basically, like, they are woken up and they're told, "Get ready, we're going into the city." And he's like, "What are you talking about? We've been sieging the city for weeks. We can't take this city." And that night, like, all of a sudden, the gates open up from the inside and let all of the Crusaders in to take the city.
Some debauchery happens.
Oh yeah, big time.
So Hugh goes into this church, right? And there's these is it two there's like two Turks, which is like the guys they're fighting, the guys that live there.
Yep.
And they're like fighting a priest, right?
Something like that. They end up killing the priest, and then Hugh tries to intervene, and then the Turk is gonna kill him because this dude's huge, yoked dude, and is gonna kill Hugh. Basically, Hugh gets put on his back and is basically gonna die. And Hugh starts laughing, and the other guy, like, his face kind of softens, like, because he's like, "Oh, this guy's insane." And basically, Hugh just keeps laughing, and essentially says, like, kind of what I said. They're both fighting for their god, but it's like a silly thing that they're doing.
Well, I think Hugh says, like, "I'm dying for a cause I don't even believe in."
Yeah. That I don't even believe in. That's right. Yeah, because he just wants to go to earn his freedom.
The Turk says the same thing.
Yeah. So then they both have a nice little laugh, and the Turk lets Hugh live, even though they're supposed to be sworn enemies. And then all these other guys come in, the Taffers.
Taffers, dude.
Yeah. So these guys are basically like mercenaries, it sounds like, that are hired by the Crusaders. And all they want to do is pillage the cities. Like, go and they literally go into all the churches and they try to find the treasure room and just steal whatever's there. So these guys come in and they just hack this dude who just let Hugh live to pieces.
Yeah. And one of the Taffers says to Hugh, he's like, because Hugh's like, he's like shocked that he killed the guy. And he's like, "Don't be sad. You're free now."
Yeah. Don't be sad. Doesn't he call him Carrot Top? Because Hugh has like
sad, Carrot Top. You're free.
Right. So then Hugh is like, well, okay, I got to do something about this. So to basically as like a memento, he takes the priest who was killed when he first got there. He takes this guy's staff with him.
And he takes a couple
Um,
other trinkets from the church.
Yeah, he grabs like a golden cross and he grabs some like Turkish coins and stuff that he thinks he'll be able to sell when he gets home to make some more money, basically to help his family out.
And then he just bails on the crusade. He's like, I'm out. I don't want to.
Yeah, he basically, he defects because he's like, after the things he's seen, he's like, I'm not doing this anymore. And like he said, he doesn't even believe in the cause. He doesn't believe in God, really. He doesn't really believe in what they're doing. So he just bails. He heads for home. And he goes, they kind of skip over this, even though it would have taken him probably forever to get back home. But they gloss over this long journey he has to get back to Vay-du-Père. And
while he's on his way home, though, we get a little scene of these knights raiding another town of this guy who'd been on the Crusades, and they like they come and they raid his house and they take something from him, and then they like take his daughter and they fucking rape her and they burn his house down and all this shit. Actually,
yeah.
But we get another scene of other knights doing some other shit somewhere else.
Right. Well, that's right. Yeah, and they all keep talking about this relic. They're looking for a relic. And we don't really know a lot about that at this point. But those little snippets, we get a few of those, like Bo said here, coming in the short beginning of the book to basically kind of set the scene as to what's going on elsewhere also. So what does he come home to?
He comes home to his inn being burned to the ground.
And Bo, pull your mic closer.
Is that better?
Yeah, it's much better. Thank you.
I mean, okay. I don't remember what.
So it would sound like you were super far away. Sorry. So he comes home to his inn being burned down.
Oh yeah, and he didn't know before he left that his wife was pregnant, and the knights had killed his son by throwing him into the fire.
Oh god.
His infant son.
Yeah, it's so the innkeeper or the miller basically tells him all this. Like, you did have a son, Philippe, but they killed your wife, Sophie. They killed your son, Philippe. They killed. Oh no, that's later. Sorry, there's a lot of killing. Yeah, is a brutal scene though, because it's these knights that they wear no colors, is what they were saying. But they were looking for Hugh at this point, right?
Yeah, they were.
Yeah. So then they end up, since they can't find Hugh, they find his wife and child and they kill them. And
well, actually, he thinks Sophie is still alive.
He knows in his heart that Sophie's still alive, but
right.
The guy talking to him is like, no, she's dead. She's got to be dead. But they do say that they took her with them. So Hugh's like, no, there's no way she's dead then. So Hugh is in like a blind rage now, and he decides he knows who did this. He knows that it was Lord Baldwin of Trey, which is their lord, basically, because he thinks for the same thing. He's like, oh, he's mad because I left to go on the crusade. So he's like, I'm going to go kill that guy. So he literally leaves with like nothing but his staff, and he just heads for Trey. And he gets accosted by a boar, and the boar almost kills him.
Yeah, he like fights it in the woods.
Yeah, and it basically almost dies. He ends up like unconscious and passed out. And so these people find him, and they take him, and they heal him. And he assumes that they maybe took him to Trey, but they take him to this other place called Bourret, which is an even bigger city in a different county, basically.
Right. And they want to know like what he was trying to do, like
right.
Like, why were you in the woods?
Yeah, he just like was in like a blind rage. He just like ran, like he was gonna run the whole way and fight this Duke essentially.
He didn't really have a plan.
No,
He just
not
kinda
at all.
just going.
So while he's in Beret, he makes a few friends, and one of them is Emily, who she was the one who found him in the woods. Her and like a company of people, and Emily is a noble, so she's highborn. That's all he knows about her. She's one of Anne's ladies in waiting, right? That's what they call it.
Yes.
So Anne is the Duke of Beret's wife.
Right.
And while Stephen, the Duke of Beret, is gone on the Crusades, Anne is in charge. And that's about all we find out about that in the beginning.
Right.
So Hugh shares his plan because he wants to freaking murder Baldwin now because he's sure that Norcross did it, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Norcross is Baldwin Chatelaine, which is like basically his right-hand knight.
Right. So he's positive that Norcross did this to his family. So he shares with these people in Beret that his plan is to go kill Norcross. And he makes friends with Emily, who is friends with the Jester that is at Beret.
Oh God, what is his name?
Norbert?
Yeah, you're right, Norbert.
Norbert? Yeah, and so they're like, well, how do you plan on getting into Trey? Because Trey is like this huge fortified city, obviously. And he's like, I don't really know. So, so they're like, well, we heard that Trey needs a jester. What if you learn to become a new jester?
Well, and Hugh has like this background of like performing as he was growing up.
Yeah, what is a Galliard?
I'm pretty sure they're like traveling performers.
Okay. And a jongleur. He says he was a jongleur. I don't know what any of those are.
I have no idea. It might be a mime. I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know either. Anyways, he says that he has done these things as when he was growing up. He was basically taken in by, that's like, I think you're right, like a traveling performer group.
Yeah, that's like how he was raised.
Mm-hmm. So he's already kind of like athletic and stuff. Like he can already do like a handstand and like front flips and back flips and like he can. What's he do? He balances his staff like on his finger or no, he balances it. That's right. He balances it on his hand, and Norbert's like, "Give me that," and he balances it like on his finger, and then he throws it up and lets it flip, and he catches it on one finger again. Yeah. And Hugh's like, "Oh, great! How am I supposed to learn how to do all that?"
Well, and Hugh tries to tell a few jokes, and Norbert's like, "Heard it, heard it, heard it, heard it, heard it."
I like Norbert. Norbert's funny.
Me too. He's a pretty good character. I mean, they're all pretty good.
Yeah.
But Hugh eventually learns to become a jester, and he goes to Baldwin's court, and he's actually able to like win them over, and he takes the jester spot.
Yeah, because their jester was kind of a lazy piece of shit, basically. Is the way they describe it.
Well, the whole city's just like depressing.
Oh yeah, it's terrible. Because like it sounds like the only one who's happy there is Baldwin, the leader.
Yeah, and his knights.
Right. Yeah, that's because he lets his knights do whatever they want.
Yeah, they're dirtbags. But so Hugh kind of gains favor with a bunch of the people there, and he wants to check out the dungeons.
Because he thinks his wife is there.
Right. And so one night he convinces the guards to let him like feed the people down there so he can check every cell. And he finds a lady he thinks is his wife, but it's not her.
Oh God.
I know, it is creepy, dude. It's so the dungeon part is depressing.
Oh, so bad. Yeah, long story short, he finds this lady who's basically saying things like the baby needs milk, and she's like cowering in the corner of the cell. He can't see her. And so Hugh is convinced it's his wife because he's like, oh, she's gone crazy because we lost our son. Well, she turns around. It's not his wife. She is holding a dead baby, trying to nurse it. And then the guards are like, go ahead and have your way with her. I was like, oh my God.
it's fucking terrible.
It's really bad. This is like when Bo says if you're squeamish, this might not be for you. This is exactly what he's talking about. Like, these parts are described in such detail that it will kind of turn your stomach while you're listening to it.
Yeah.
Which is impressive, by the way. There's not that many books that can do that.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal.
So basically, Hugh ends up, he kind of wins over, these people, and he ends up, no. What does he do? He gets himself arrested.
He goes after he leaves the dungeon. He goes back to his quarters, and there's one of like the highborn ladies is trying to seduce him.
Oh, that's right.
And he's really not having any of it. But then, like, before he can even do anything, Norcross is like right there, and he's like, "You were trying to rape her. I saw you." He's like, "No, I really wasn't." He's like, "Oh, to the fucking jail with you, sir."
Yeah, and even the chick, you find out that she was like in on the whole thing, basically.
Yeah.
They were setting him up.
Yeah.
Because this whole time we kind of forgot to mention that after Hugh got the Jester spot, he's basically just been making fun of Norcross and pissing him off the whole time.
Well, but Norcross is also a little suspicious because he has red hair.
Yeah, he's like, I know you from somewhere.
Yeah. So yeah, he gets thrown in prison, and then while he's in there, he's living it up prison life for a while, and then Palimpos, the Jester from before, actually shows up and saves him.
Yeah,
and lets him out, and he shows him the way. Like, there's like a secret tunnel out through into the city, and then Hugh gets about halfway, and he's like, you know what? I gotta kill Norcross. Like, I can't leave with him alive.
Right.
And so he goes up to fight Norcross, and Norcross is a little drunk at the time, and so Hugh is actually, they fight. I mean, Hugh kind of gets hurt, but he's actually able to beat him and kill him.
He's also just like banging some chick too. At the time.
He is.
Apparently, that's all these people do is just like.
What else was there to do back then?
I mean, good point. But yeah, and he also, I do like the parts where Hugh, so I did like this about this book in particular, that I don't think a lot of books get this right. So Hugh is he's enraged at Norcross. He wants to kill Norcross. However, Norcross is a trained professional knight. And I like the fact that once they start fighting, even though Hugh is like fueled by rage, he very quickly is like, oh my God, I can't beat this guy.
Yeah.
He's gonna kill me. And I don't think enough books get that right, or even enough just stories in general. I can't say books, just stories in general. Because most stories want to be like, oh, Hugh is our hero, therefore because he's mad, he wins easily. But it's like, Hugh has no fighting experience at all. And he has
a little bit from the Crusades.
Well, okay, yeah, that's true. Good point. But this guy, that's all this guy has pretty much been doing his whole life. So they just did a really good job of, just because Hugh is the main character, he doesn't have an easy time with any of these people by any means.
Yeah.
And like you said, he ends up getting hurt because Norcross is a professional fighter, basically.
And he only kills him because he gets cocky.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, because
which happens a lot.
He ends up like just dagger stabbing him basically to kill him. And he gets lucky because he literally, Norcross has like his sword to his throat. He's pushing Hugh's own sword into his neck because Hugh cannot hold him back anymore. Like it's pretty tense. And like I said, I like that they let it get tense like right up to the last second. But so Hugh does end up killing Norcross, and then he flees the city.
And he goes back to he doesn't go home though. I don't think so.
He doesn't? I thought he did.
I think he goes to.
Or does he go? Does he go back to Beret?
Yeah, he goes back to Beret.
I think you're right. Yeah, he goes back to Beret and basically tells them what he did.
Right, he tells them what he did, and then because like Norbert's he's like not feeling well, so he stands in as Jester there for a little bit.
That's right. Yeah. Except he has to be really careful because even though like Trey and Beret are not necessarily like so Baldwin and Stephen, the two dukes, are not necessarily like friends. They're obviously still both dukes.
Right.
So Hugh is like, yeah, if word gets here that I was the one who killed Norcross, obviously these people will kill me.
Right. But I think he tells Emily, doesn't he, that he killed Norcross?
Yeah. Yeah, he does tell her. And then Stephen ends up coming back, right, from the crusade while he's there.
No, I think that's actually a little bit after.
Is it?
Maybe he does come back when he's there.
I can't fully remember. This book is long.
It's almost like a trilogy in one book.
Yeah, exactly.
Because like the Crusades could be its own book. The whole bit when he's at Baldwin's court could be its own book. And the stuff that happens after that could be its own book too.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, at the end it could be its own standalone for sure.
Because especially this time when I was listening to it, I was like, oh my god, there's still more?
Right. I did the same thing.
Because there's so many moments when you're like, whoa, that was such a peak, and then it just keeps going. And then there's another peak. It's like, what the heck? This is crazy.
Yeah, this book has several climaxes in it for sure. Yeah. So I cannot remember now if he goes, if Stephen comes back at this point. I think you're right. I don't think he does
because well, never mind.
Well, because he gains the favor of. Does he gain the favor of Anne? Yeah, he does gain the favor of Anne the second time he's there. Not the first time, the second time. So I think you're right. That's when Hugh gains the favor of Anne.
I don't remember why, but he goes to the dungeons.
In Beret.
Right.
I'm trying to remember why he goes to the dungeons also.
I can't remember why he goes there. He does something. Is he like? I can't remember why.
I can't remember why either now. Because he wasn't. Yeah, because he just assumed after he found the lady in Trey that his wife was dead. He's like, well, she's got to be dead, obviously, if she's not here, because he assumed she'd be in Trey.
Why does he go to the dungeon? I don't remember. I can't remember. There's a reason.
I cannot remember either.
He goes to the dungeons, and he finds his wife.
Yeah.
Which, like, even this time I knew it was coming, and I'm still like, oh my god. So he finds Sophie. So Sophie had been in Beret the whole time.
Right.
So Baldwin wasn't even involved in the guys that are looking for him.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. That's right. And then that's when he flees and goes back home after because so he has like this long kind of heartfelt thing with his wife, even though she's like out of her mind. And then she dies in his arms.
Yeah,
which is
she does.
And ends up killing the guards because he freaks out and he kills the guards. And that's when he's like, oh yeah, I probably better get out of here. Like, and then he goes back home.
Yeah, he goes back home, and like most of the town doesn't really want him there because they freaking have pillaged the town a couple times looking for him.
Yeah, and they pillaged it again, and his inn that was burned down when he was there was being rebuilt by Emily's brother, and they ended up killing him too.
Yeah.
Because they're looking for Hugh now, obviously. So Trey ends up coming looking for Hugh, and they kill Emily's brother.
Don't know that it's. I mean, we kind of know that it's Trey.
Well, that's just what they assume, right? Is that it is Trey because of what Hugh did. Well, but yes, you're right.
I think actually, doesn't when he killed the guards in the the dungeon, he figures out that they're Taffers.
Yeah, he figures out there's Taffers there in Beret,
Right.
which he's like, wait a minute, why would these guys be here when they were in, the Holy Land at the Crusades?
So Hugh goes home and he like convinces the people. He's like, okay, I'm gonna stay, but we're gonna fight back. Like what Baldwin has done to us is just not right, and we are gonna make him pay. And so he kind of convinces all these people to be on his side, and they like build up the town, and they like build it up like a good defensible position. And then while he's there, like a scout comes, and he's like, "Oh, there's guys from Trey are coming to fight you guys." And he's like, "Well, and to prove that I'm like on your side, here is your staff that you left in Beret."
Yeah, that's right, because Norbert sends it back to him.
Which to me, I was like, "Oh shit!"
Right.
Because I forgot all about that.
Yeah, I kind of did too, actually.
So the knights attack the town. Sorry.
So
I kind of want to speed up a little bit so I would talk about that part. Just because it's so important.
No, and then one thing we've been forgetting to mention too is that each time these raids happen, there's always this guy leading it that's called Black Cross.
Oh, right. He has like a black cross on his helmet.
Yeah, well, he has a black, like, Byzantine cross on his helmet, and then he has a black cross scarred into his neck, like burned into his neck.
Well, don't all the Taffers have that?
Right. So I just forgot to bring it up, but they bring it up a lot in the book.
You're right, they do. So Hugh actually, during the raid, they're actually doing pretty good, and Hugh actually ends up fighting this guy, the Black Cross guy, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he ends up fighting Black Cross, and this is what you're talking about that's pretty important.
So Hugh like ends up losing his sword, and all he has to defend himself is his staff. And like the staff is taking like heavy hits from the sword, but it's still like holding up, but it's like chipping away something underneath. And eventually it ends up all the wood ends up breaking off, and Hugh realizes that there's like a spear underneath. And what he has is the Holy Lance, which is like, I didn't know what this was. They do a good job of explaining it. The Holy Lance is the lance that was used like to pierce Jesus Christ's side as he was on the cross.
Right. It's all those paintings and pictures you see of Jesus on the cross where there's like what was the Romans, right? That stabbed him. Yeah. So where there's the Roman guy stabbing Jesus, that is the lance that Hugh now has in his possession, and it supposedly still has Jesus Christ's blood on it.
Right.
And apparently this relic is like the most sacred relic of all things at this time in the world.
Yeah. And that's what they've been looking for this whole time. And Hugh didn't even know he had it.
Right, because the way it was like encased in wood, like they disguised it as like a normal walking staff.
And he actually ends up using it to stab Black Cross with it.
Yeah. He ends up fighting Black Cross, almost losing again, because again, this guy is like a killer. And he ends up stabbing.
I love the way that they fight in this book, because it's so like they're not necessarily like hitting each other with just the swords. Like he grabs him and knees him in the groin. Like they're brutal to each other. Like they fight like they really would.
Right. Yeah.
I hated shows that's like swords that are just like cling, cling, ting, ting, and like, no, dude, like they would use their shield and run into you to knock you on the ground and stuff like that. Like they would really like use their bodies instead of just their weapons.
So we also find out too that after Stephen gets back to Beret, that Morgaine is Black Cross, and Morgaine is also Stephen's chatelaine. And basically that Stephen is the one of Beret who's looking for this relic.
Yeah, he is. It's supposed to give you immortality.
Right. And it'll make you essentially like the richest man in the world, basically.
Right.
I don't understand any of it, because I think that's another thing that's very stupid. But again, these people's belief is stronger than I guess, reality.
Yeah.
So, um, so Stephen has been the one sending these raids out of Taffers, looking and like pillaging the cities, looking for this relic, specifically this relic.
Yeah.
And I hate this part. I hate to admit it. I hate this part. So they beat all these Taffers. There's not very many of them. It's like 20 of them. But their little town of farmers beats these guys, kills them all. Except when they go back to move the bodies, Black Cross's body's magically gone, and he survived.
Right.
I hated that part. I hated it.
He's super wounded.
I know. I just don't like the fact that it's like, oh yeah, I stabbed him. He's dead, and then I just picture he like turns around, we won, and Black Cross like gets up. He's like, ah, that really hurt, and he just like limps off.
Yeah, I don't know either. Yeah.
And nobody noticed.
That's one of the things I kind of have an issue with too. It's like, oh, we won. Like, I'm pretty sure he was like, oh, I defeated him. I turned around, I looked at the town and everybody was still like, everybody was doing good. We killed all the knights. I turned back around and Black Cross is gone. It's like he was in a full suit of armor. Like you wouldn't have heard him like getting up and shimmying away.
Exactly. That's exactly my point. Nobody noticed him escape.
It's a little strange.
Yeah. So once this happens, like once all is said and done in this little kind of skirmish, basically Hugh is like, look, we can't just sit here because they'll come again and again and again until they've killed us all because they want this. And they're like, well, what are we going to do, Hugh? And he's like, we have to go and take the fight to them if we want to be, basically left alone.
Well, and he actually gathers quite a big force because they're all flocking to the spear.
Yeah, so basically Hugh is like, we're gonna march on Trey. That's where he wants to go first. The Duke of his duchy.
Yeah.
And he says we're gonna go take Trey from Baldwin. And like you said, as he's marching, there's just constantly people coming up and they're like, are you the Jester with the Holy Lance, basically? Because he's still wearing his patchwork.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about all that.
Yeah, he wears his patchwork suit, like, so he looks like a Jester while he's leading this army.
And can we talk? This book's actually pretty funny.
Oh yeah, there is quite a few funny parts in it. Yeah. It definitely needs it to lighten the mood a little bit.
It does need it. I see why a king would need a Jester because times are dark.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Times are really rough.
So Hugh ends up leading a fairly good-sized army against Trey. Like he ends up with like 1,200 guys or something like that by the time they get to Trey. And that's like a huge army back in the day. Like, even though they're only like, mostly like farmers and hunters and blacksmiths and whatever, it's still a fairly formidable force. And they're all the more like vigorous because they're standing behind Hugh, who has this holy lance, basically.
Right, and then so Hugh actually, they don't end up like taking the siege on at Trey because they know he's just gonna wait him out. And so they just end up sneaking in through the passage he got out of, and they end up taking Baldwin hostage.
Yeah, so they take Baldwin hostage. They also seize Trey, which means they seize all of Trey's weapons and armor and siege engines and everything. And so then Hugh is like, well, we can't stop here because Stephen is the one who really wanted this lance.
Well,
so now we got to fight
I thought
him.
another band of troops show up and they want to go after Stephen more.
Well, I need to back up a little bit. So actually, once they take Trey, Hugh thinks they should march on Beret, but everybody else is like, nah, man, we want to go home.
Yeah, because they basically got what they wanted.
Right. They're like, we just didn't want Baldwin because he's a douche. We didn't want him in charge anymore. And they got that. But Hugh wants to march still on Beret because he's like, Stephen's just going to keep coming back for this lance. He won't let me rest. And then you're you're right. So he ends up losing a bunch of people, and he gets down to like, I don't know, 100 guys who are still with him. But then this other group shows up, and they're like, no, we want to join you in marching on Beret. And so he's like, okay, let's march. And same thing happens. While he's going from Trey to Beret, he's picking up more and more people.
Right.
And then he meets like the I thought of them as wildlings.
Kind of.
Just a bunch of freaking Viking dudes. And they're like wanting to join his fight against Trey because they're like, we've been enemies of Trey for 200 years. He's like, well, we already took Trey. We're marching to Beret now. And he's like, oh, well, then you're lucky because we've been enemies of Beret for 300 years.
I like that guy.
I know. Ox.
Yeah, he's cool as hell.
That part is awesome. Yeah, just so now they have like 300 guys that are just like these huge yoked Vikings.
Well, and they're actually equipped now.
Yeah, because they got all the stuff from Trey. So now they have like a true army marching on Beret.
Right.
And like I said, now
before,
they have actual siege
weapons.
engines.
Yeah, the siege
now
weapons is really important.
Right. Now they have like mangonels, which are like catapults, and battering rams and ladders and all kinds of stuff to actually hold a siege. Which is good.
And so
because
they actually siege Trey, don't they?
Yeah, but I was gonna say it's good because Beret is like 3 times the size of Trey.
Yeah, it's way
Trey. Yeah, Trey was considered like a very small city, and Beret is like a big city. And Stephen has like 3 times the amount of knights that Baldwin had at his, so he has,
because all of his guys came back from the Crusades.
Right. Yeah. So he has a lot of knights and a lot of fighting force basically in Beret. And they siege Beret. And it is just as brutal as Antioch.
Right. It is super brutal.
Yeah.
And so Hugh ends up tricking them because he makes it look like kind of most of the guys have disbanded and left. And so freaking Stephen kind of gets cocky and is like, just send the knights straight out the gate. Like, we're not going to fight them on the walls. We're going to fight them out there and like truly break their spirit.
Right.
And so Hugh ends up leading them into the woods where all the guys were hiding, and they end up jumping all the knights and taking most of them hostage. I mean, they kill a lot of them.
Yeah,
they take a lot of them hostage.
Yeah.
Because they just want Stephen. They don't care about anything else. I mean, this part's pretty brutal too. And so they're like, Stephen, like, you come out or we're gonna kill all your knights. And what are they like? Stephen's like, you send one man and I'll send one man.
Well, and Stephen has Emily.
Right, that's right.
Forgot about Emily. Yeah, so Stephen is holding Emily, whom Hugh has kind of like been falling in love with, essentially. This is kind of the love story Bo was talking about. It's very like sidelined, but it's there.
It is there.
And Stephen has her hostage. And then, so Stephen's like, we're going to do things my way, basically. And then, so that's the part you're talking about, where they're supposed to both send a man out.
And so the frickin' Hugh sends out Baldwin.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's because he was gonna dress Baldwin up, because like it's kind of hard to tell like people apart from that far away. So he's gonna dress him up in like his nice clothes, and Baldwin's like, no, Stephen knows me. You don't need to do that.
He'll recognize me.
Yeah. He sends him out there, and the archers just freaking wreck him, like shoot him a bunch of times.
Yeah, they fill freaking him just full of arrows.
Yeah, it's pretty.
And one of them has a note on it, right? The first arrow has a note on it. Which, by the way, that's very trustworthy to put a note on. That guy must have been a hell of an archer.
I know, right?
If Stephen knew, not only was he gonna that the note was gonna stay on, but that guy was gonna sink that shot.
Right.
So,
and okay, so I don't remember what happens like directly next.
basically, the note says that you will lay down your arms and you will give me the lance, is essentially all he wants. He wants the Holy Lance. And they end up that night in their camp, I can't remember what his title is, but it's Anne's. Basically, the knight that protects Anne comes to Hugh's camp. He sneaks into Hugh's camp to talk with him because Anne hates her husband Stephen.
Right.
Because he is a dick to her.
He is a super dick.
So this guy, Anne wants to see Hugh win this fight. So she sends her man out there, and her man basically says, you can bring you and like 3 other guys with you, and I will get you into the castle. Mm-hmm. And so Hugh and like 3 of his best men get into the castle because Stephen had said either they surrender Hugh, give Hugh up, or he's going to execute Emily, basically.
Right.
He's going to burn her. And then they end up going into the castle, and they're there that next morning, and they have Emily set up to be burned. And Stephen's like, we're going to wait and see if your Jester shows up. And then, because they open the gates. That's right, because one of Hugh's guys on the outside pretends to be Hugh, and they start marching towards the castle with their arms down. They laid down their weapons, and so Stephen says, okay, open the gate and let the Jester come in. And then they realize, like almost at the last second, that it's not Hugh. But Hugh's guys like kill the dudes that are closing the gate, and then they jam the gate open so Hugh's army can come inside. And Hugh's like, here I am, Stephen. You want the lance? Here it is. And he throws it into the fire.
Yeah, he like sticks it in there.
Yeah, he throws it in. Because I just picture like a huge bonfire built up like they would burn witches on.
Yeah.
And he throws this freaking lance into the fire. And at first you think Stephen's just going to dive in after it because he's insane. But he ends up not diving in after it. And they end up fighting, right? Hugh and Stephen end up fighting.
Yeah. And
but
Stephen's kill him.
Yeah, and once again, I do like this. That Hugh basically is like, yeah, he's gonna kill me. He's way better at fighting than I am.
But then Anne freaking comes up behind him and stabs him with the holy lance.
With the actual holy lance. Yeah, because Hugh gave Anne the holy lance the night before in expectation of that he didn't want it to be out there while they were fighting. And then Anne, because Anne comes out and she's like, here's the lance, husband, you can have it. And Stephen's like, see, I told you so. And then she stabs him in the back with it. It's pretty brutal. And then he ends up falling in the fire anyways, right?
Oh yeah.
Super dead. Yeah, he ends up super dead. So they take Beret, basically, and then the King of France shows up because they had written to the King of France, and they were basically like, hey, man, these 2 guys are being dicks. You need to do something about it. And so the King of France shows up, and then we get another little twist that Emily is the king's daughter.
Yeah. It's like, oh, shit.
Yeah. So it's a pretty big deal. And the king's basically like, well, Hugh, are you going to marry my daughter or what?
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. But
it is kind of, that part to me is like, what? He's just some common dude.
Yeah, it's kind of bizarre.
I mean, they like make a lord out of him, but it's just, I don't know. I thought that was a strange.
I thought it was too. Because, the king like just met him.
Yeah.
I did like, though, how the king was like, where's that fool who's been causing all these problems in my kingdom? And Hugh's like, Emily's like, Father, Hugh didn't do anything, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about Stephen.
Yeah.
I did like that part.
Yeah, the king's pretty cool.
Yeah, he was pretty funny. I kind of picture him like the Magic King.
Oh, the Wizard
The
King?
Wizard King, yeah. That's kind of how I pictured
Julius Novachrono?
it. So basically, we get this kind of happily ever after part right there, and then we get an epilogue. So we jump like, what is it, like 40 years into the future?
Yeah.
It's a long time.
Yeah, it's pretty long.
So we find out that 40 years in the future that Hugh and Emily were married, and they had some kids, and then their kids had some kids, and he's got grandkids now, and he's still an innkeeper, but they own like a third of the land that Beret had owned because he's, married to the king's daughter. And then we get this kind of nice, sweet little wrap up to the whole story.
Yeah, so yeah, basically the whole story is Hugh telling his grandson what happened.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, that's the Jester.
That's it. And I didn't really like the epilogue, but
No, the epilogue did not need to be there at all.
no, it really didn't. It could but I wonder if they just didn't want to leave it open ended, like you thought there was gonna be another book or something. Because if they had left it, it might have seemed like there could be another one, but I don't think that the epilogue adds anything to the story.
I wish they would have went back to like the modern time opening.
Yes, that's exactly. I wish they would have that's how the epilogue should have been wrapped up, is that they circle back around to what they were talking about at the beginning, because you don't hear any more about that.
Yeah, so yeah,
Oh,
I kind of wish that's what they would have done.
Hugh ends up burying the lance with Stephen's body, right? In his coffin.
Is that what he does?
Yeah.
No, because in the beginning they literally mention that, like, why would the lance be buried with a jester?
Well, he puts it, he buries it though, remember? Because he tells the king that it was lost. He doesn't have it with him anymore.
I thought he buries it with his wife and his son.
Is that what it is? You might be right. No, you might be right. I know that he buries it and puts it in the tomb of someone. Is that who it's with? You got to be right. It wouldn't have been Stephen. I must have been daydreaming at that part.
Well, the only reason I say that is because in the beginning they say, like, why would a jester have a relic of this quality?
Right. Yeah, you got to be right.
So yeah, I mean, maybe that's like a continuity error. I don't know.
No, I think
now I got to listen to the whole thing again.
Yeah, just so you can hear the part that's in the last like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Either way, though, Hugh, because the king asks Hugh about the lance, and he's like, "Oh no, it was lost. It was lost in fire or whatever." He basically says it was
basically
lost.
says it was destroyed.
Right.
Because it's supposed to grant you immortality, but they don't really get into that.
It's just the thing of faith, though.
Yeah,
they just think it's like the greatest.
100% true.
That's all it is, man. They just think it's like the greatest relic ever. And I'll reiterate this, that almost 95% of the killing that was done in this book, specifically in this story, was done in the name of God.
Yeah. Straight up.
Oh, we forgot to mention, too, that Hugh ends up killing Black Cross when all the knights ride out to kill him.
Oh, yeah.
Hugh does end up killing him, and the only way he ends up beating him this time is because Black Cross almost kills him again, and Hugh resorts back to his way he survived in the beginning and just starts laughing when he's almost dead, when he's almost gonna die.
Well, and
he
he's
just
telling
laughs
jokes
it off.
too.
Yeah, pretty good joke too.
Yeah,
it's
pretty good.
This water's cold. It's also deep.
Oh, I love when he's talking to at the beginning when he's trying to get into Baldwin's court and he's like saving those guys and he's like, what sexual position makes the ugliest children? Yeah. Ask your mom.
Yeah. Yeah. That one is pretty good.
This book's also pretty funny.
Yeah, they do have some good jokes. Like I said, I think it's very good juxtaposition for how brutal the book is, because but again, how brutal this book comes across probably doesn't even scratch the surface of how brutal life actually was in those times.
Yeah. Sure, I'm sure it was awful.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But that's it. That is The Jester by James Patterson and Andrew Gross.
Yeah, I mean, okay,
What?
I looked up Andrew Gross. It doesn't say he's a novelist.
Oh, well, so maybe he writes some stuff. I just noticed when you click on his name in Audible, this is it. This is all that comes up is The Jester. So that's all I see.
He has written a few things on his own. He's actually worked on quite a few books with James Patterson.
Oh, well, good job, Andrew Gross. You did a good job there.
Okay, let's say Andrew Gross did write on this. There's no way to tell at any point like who's writing.
No. It is seamless. It's not
all
like
really consistent.
Yeah. And when we're saying that, we're looking at you there, Larry Correa.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of exactly what I was getting at.
I know, because especially Larry Correa's latest book, you can for sure tell who wrote which parts, and that I don't think that's a good thing when you are, writing with someone, when you can tell exactly who's writing which part.
Oh, yeah, it's bad. It's just bad.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah,
what are we gonna do next time?
Do you? I guess we got to talk about it. Do you want to do the anime next?
No, I think we need to hold off on that. Let's just keep this strictly to what audiobook are we gonna do next?
Hang on.
And for anyone curious what Bo is talking about, go back and listen to I believe this is our 4th roundtable episode. We talk about something new we're going to be trying to implement on the podcast that he's talking about with anime.
Let's do Fahrenheit 451 next.
Okay, good call. So there it is. Fahrenheit 451 will be the next audiobook that we review on here. And don't anybody pretend like you don't have time to listen to it, because I know you guys are all in quarantine like good people.
Yeah,
so,
and I walk in the streets.
That's right. Well, if you walk the streets, at least keep your physical distance.
6 feet.
That's right. Don't call it social distancing. You can still talk to people. Just don't.
No, you're not allowed to talk.
Just don't get right up in their bubble. Their sick bubble.
Yeah.
And I think with that, we hope to catch everybody in the next episode.
Bye, Z's.